Alright, welcome to this new thing I'm playing with. Laslo lecturing lawmakers. It's interesting because it seems like you're saying put constraints on the government, but Silicon Valley we trust. We don't want to hamper them.
Well, I don't think we still have laws that govern things like privacy,
No, we don't. Y'all haven't
property
touched that.
rights, and
No, y'all haven't
speech
touched that.
and things. There's all kinds. Certainly, I mean, those things would still be prohibited no matter whether it's a human or a machine that's violating it.
Y'all haven't
Those
touched
things
data
would still
privacy.
apply. But in terms of how, look, again, I just don't.
AI is going to take
I'm
all
not-
of our personal data that they have in Silicon Valley right now because y'all haven't acted. And hey, it's not just Professor Laslo. Here's Republican Senator Josh Hawley reacting to Rubio. So hey, Matt Laslo here. If you're not familiar with me, I started covering Congress back in 2006, and then I started teaching political communications at Johns Hopkins, where I did my master's. I teach in that same program, or master's in government and public policy program. I teach mostly on like new media's impact on government, how rhetoric is adapted to new technologies over time, etc., etc. Also, under that professor cap, I've been an op-ed contributor at Reuters, The Guardian, and NBC Think. Oh, and on Tap Magazine. Hell yeah, I was a beer opinion writer. So whatever this is, Laslo lecturing lawmakers, it's much more in that vein of Professor Laslo and op-ed writer Laslo. For years I've been annoyed with what I'm looking at right now. 12 or maybe 10 notebooks right here on my desk at home. It's just from this year alone. There's so many interviews that just sit there that over my 17 years now covering Congress, no one ever hears these, and I think it's a shame. So I'm looking for more ways to get the raw interviews out, but especially the interesting moments to kind of bring y'all inside the Capitol. Because I know, according to polls and all that, Washington's not trusted, it's despised, and rightfully so, which is why I want to show you it inside and out. So yeah, every once in a while when there's interesting exchanges I have with lawmakers, I'll be posting them. Please give me feedback. This is going to evolve as we go. But here tonight is my exchange with Senator Marco Rubio, who is the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He was coming out of a classified all senators AI briefing earlier this summer. And, a huge gaggle of reporters was around him, and Professor Laslo popped up, which actually this exchange became the foundation for my latest feature in Wired, The Ghost of Privacy Past Haunts the Senate's AI Future.
I think that's already the case. A human being has to order a nuclear strike to the President of the United States. And I don't think should ever outsource something like that.
So constraints on government, but like a company like Google, they're not even releasing all of their AI capabilities because they're self-policing themselves.
Their use of AI would be different than ours. I mean, again, they want to predict the future for purposes of marketing and selling products, and that's already there. I mean, that's already existing. And there's a difference between AI, which is the capability, and then the applications. So a driverless car is using AI, but it's not AI. It's an application of AI to tell you to stay in your lane, not to hit the car in front of you, you shouldn't go beyond a certain speed. But in the end, I mean, a human is still in charge of it. It's not driverless, but that's an application of AI. And Google's application would be very different than the government might use it for, although the same engineering capability can be re-engineered for some other.
It's interesting because it seems like you're saying put constraints on the government, but Silicon Valley we trust. We don't want to hamper them.
Well, I don't think we still have laws that govern things like privacy,
No, we don't. Y'all haven't
property
touched that.
rights, and
No, y'all haven't touched
speech
that.
and things. There's all kinds. Certainly, I mean, those things would still be prohibited no matter whether it's a human or a machine that's violating it.
Y'all haven't
Those
touched
things
data
would still
privacy.
apply. But in terms of how, look, again, I just don't.
AI is going to take
I'm
all
not-
of our personal data that they have in Silicon Valley right now because y'all haven't acted.
Well, they'll take
Exactly.
they'll take the data to try to predict what you're going to buy tomorrow, or where you want to travel to tomorrow, or what you want to look at. And it already does. I mean, one of the things that, not just TikTok, Instagram, and others, but one of the things that makes TikTok so effective is it knows people better than they know themselves. They know what you like, they know what you'll look at, and the models, the recommender engines, use that out increasingly. The more it learns about you, the better it is at predicting you. The better it is at selling you things that you never knew you wanted.
Rubio left the classified briefing early, along with Senator Ted Cruz, and Cruz darted fairly quickly, but still talked to us. But Senator Rubio sat there and held court for a long time. So yeah, here's that entire raw, about 10 minutes of Marco Rubio for those of you who are truly dedicated. Others, you already got the good part. Yeah, it's informative, it's interesting, at least to me. Prof. Laslo. Enjoy.
Well, my view of it is we can regulate how it's used by the government. I'm not sure you can regulate a technology or a capability that is transnational. Other countries aren't going to follow American law on this. So I think we have to think through, before you can even answer that question, I think there has to be a clear understanding of what artificial intelligence is and what the various applications are. There will be positives associated with it. There are things we'll be able to do better because of it. And there are some dangers that it poses. There are jobs that will be eliminated by it. And we've seen what happened in the industrial era when the impact automation had on millions of jobs, what that's meant to the industrialized world.
You can't regulate the companies? I mean,
you can regulate the companies, you can't regulate the capability. So maybe a company can't do that in America. We'll just do it in Bahrain, Qatar,
so do you
or
think
China.
Regulation is in general not really needed? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I don't think we know enough about this kind of thing. We can certainly regulate how our government uses it. How the military uses targeting information, how the intelligence community uses it, how different agencies of government use it to make decisions. What I don't think we can regulate is anything outside of the United States, how other countries use it, how companies headquartered in other places use it.
Do you think the additional briefings are going to help you bridge that knowledge gap? Do you think they just
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that at a minimum it brings everybody to some level of proficiency about what exactly it is we're talking about here and the promise that it holds in addition to the pitfalls.
Do you support the idea of trying to get legislation moving?
I don't know
now?
yet. I mean, legislation to do what?
Well, Schumer wants to try and regulate the way it's used, the way it's produced,
And I think we can
make it more transparent. You know what?
Well, that again, we can do that as far as how the government uses it or what some company in the United States does. But AI is not the kind of thing where, unlike some technologies from the past, it's knowledge-based and it's engineering-based, so it's not the kind of thing that you can confine to the national border. Some other country will still develop a capability that you're not allowing in your own country. So I'm not sure it solves it from a global standpoint, and everyone will be impacted by it. I'm not against it, I just don't know enough about it yet to even understand what it is we're trying to regulate. There's probably some role to play in codifying how government uses it in the house realm and so forth. But beyond that, I'm not prepared to give you an opinion because I think it's something we're still learning about.
Did you ask that at all in there?
I mean,
because
I've asked it in the past.
Like we're seeing Europe move on AI where other nations. You think that'll be limiting to the U.S. if we act in kind? European partners?
Have I asked that to you?
Well, I'm just wondering. It sounds like you're saying.
Well, I've asked questions about how we should regulate or at least codify how it's used by government to make important decisions, particularly like go to war or not. I think the broader one that I talk a lot about that I don't think yet has been talked about sufficiently is the impact this is going to have on society and our economy when entire professions that people borrowed money to go to school get wiped out or limited by a new technology that does what they used to do, but they do it faster and cheaper. We saw what automation did to the working class across the world, and we're still feeling the ramifications of that to this very day. I think it's at the core of many of our issues here in our country that have manifested politically. I think AI is almost guaranteed to have an even greater impact given on our economy, our society, and our culture.
What about the fear from Marquis Pezlou about nuclear strikes? AI is doing it. Should
Well,
Congress act on that?
and I think even now the Department of Defense does not allow a machine to make a decision. But whether it's smart to codify that, sure. I mean, that's one of the things I talk about in terms of like you can regulate how government uses it to make decisions about whether to go to war or whether to strike or not strike. again, AI at its core is it takes data from yesterday and it analyzes it to try to predict what's going to happen next and recommend a path forward. There are a lot of ways in which that's really helpful. So, Waze tells you what streets you should turn on, right? But I'm not sure you want that same technology deciding whether you should launch a nuclear counterstrike based on information that may be misleading or that doesn't have context to it. So I think that's already the case. A human being has to order a nuclear strike to the President of the United States. And I don't think should ever outsource something like that.
So constraints on government, but like a company like Google, they're not even releasing all of their AI capabilities because they're self-policing themselves.
Their use of AI would be different than ours. Again, they want to predict the future for purposes of marketing and selling products, and that's already there. I mean, that's already existing. And there's a difference between AI, which is the capability, and then the applications. So a driverless car is using AI, but it's not AI. It's an application of AI to tell you to stay in your lane, not to hit the car in front of you, how you shouldn't go beyond a certain speed. But in the end, I mean, a human is still in charge of it. It's not driverless, but that's an application of AI. And Google's application would be very different than what the government might use it for. Although the same engineering capability can be re-engineered for some other.
It's interesting because it seems like you're saying put constraints on the government, but Silicon Valley we trust. We don't want to hamper them.
Well, I don't think we still have laws that govern things like privacy and
We don't yell and
property
touch that.
rights and
No, don't let him touch
speech
that.
and things. There's all kinds. Certainly, I mean, those things would still be prohibited no matter whether it's a human or a machine that's violating it.
Yeah, let him touch
Those things
data
would still
privacy.
apply. But in terms of how, look, again, I just don't.
AI is going to take
I'm
all
not-
of our personal data that they have in Silicon Valley right now because y'all have an act.
Well, they'll take
Use that.
they'll take the data to try to predict what you're going to buy tomorrow, or where you want to travel to tomorrow, or what you want to look at, and it already does. I mean, one of the things that not just TikTok, Instagram, and others, but one of the things that makes TikTok so effective is it knows people better than they know themselves. They know what you like, they know what you'll look at, and the models, the recommender engines, spews that out increasingly. The more it learns about you, the better it is at predicting. The better it is at selling you things that you never knew you wanted.
Yeah.
What about this briefing today? Did you learn anything new? I mean,
Well,
is
we've
it-
had this because this involves
Presidential.
individuals, right?
Yeah.
But I'm by no means an AI expert. I don't think most people are. So there's still a lot to learn before I can give you like a serious. But one thing I'm certain of is I know of no technological advance in human history that you've been able to roll back. It's going to happen. The question is, how do we build guardrails and practices around it so that we can maximize its benefits and diminish its harm?
Are these briefings like scary? Are they like
Not
this is all the
necessarily.
horrible stuff that could
No,
happen,
not
or is it
necessarily.
more like what
I
is
don't
it like
say they're
generally?
scary. I think they're factual. I mean, they're fact-based. This is where the world is headed. This is where we're going to head no matter what law we pass. And the question is, this is how it would be useful for government, in this case national security, in other cases economy. And these are some of the disruptions it might create in some of the ways that an adversary could use it against us. And so really they're information more than anything.
You mentioned earlier that a lot of members didn't refer to yourself because I know a ton about AI these days. How
Either we interact with it every day.
exactly?
All of us.
How tough of an issue is this going to be for us to grapple with writ large? I mean, because
Well, the harder thing to grapple with is that you're dealing with a technology that knows no national borders. So even if we write laws that say a company can't do that in America, doesn't mean some company in some other part of the world or some government in another part of the world won't innovate that and use it and deploy it. And the U.S.
The EU does have strong rules. They have the EU AI Act.
Yeah.
They might, but China doesn't, and Saudi Arabia doesn't, and Qatar doesn't, and those are nations that have plenty of money to throw at the problem, and they don't have to be the best in the world in AI because their capabilities they might want it for are very specific. So, just as an example, the ability to use artificial intelligence to innovate new drugs relies on tremendous reams of genetic and biological information, which the Chinese can compel from their citizens and steal from the rest of the world. So we'll reach a point where we could say companies in America can't use AI to analyze your genetic information. So all the new life-saving drugs are now being innovated in China, and the Europeans and Americans will be buying for it, even though we're against it. So these are the things that we're going to think through.
One of your colleagues came out and sounded sort of an optimistic tone in terms of the U.S.'s position on leading on AI. Do you think American companies are essentially leading, or it sounds like you have concerns about
But I think the question really is innovate a new weapon. We may have the state of the art, but North Korea doesn't need the state of the art. This is not a perfect analogy, but North Korea doesn't need the most precision-guided ICBM, because if a nuclear warhead lands anywhere in the United States, it's a problem, right? So they don't need the best precision rocket. They just need one that's big enough to reach our shores, and it's going to hit somewhere. And so that's my concern. You don't have to have state-of-the-art AI for weaponized against us, right? So those are the kinds of things that we're concerned with, and being able to protect against and disrupt it and have a counter to it.
Did you hear a plan in there that you think addresses those concerns?
Well, I'm aware of the plans of both of our intelligence agencies and the Department of Defense, and these are existing plans. In many ways, they're not even new. Concepts like artificial intelligence and decision. We've been in the business of trying to predict the future so we can make decisions forever. The only difference between AI and the past is it allows you to move faster and potentially more accurately. But so those are ongoing. And, yeah, I feel like I said that substantial continuing progress on this, but this is a rapidly evolving field. So. All right, thank you. Guys.
Thank you, sir.
And there it is. Laslo lecturing lawmakers with Prof. Laslo. See you next time. And you don't want to miss that Josh Hawley. It's fire, yo. Peace.